He thought the royal guard was just a silent statue. He laughed. He mocked. Then he attacked. But what happened next turned the crowd silent. Because this guard? He wasn't just standing there. He was ready. London buzzed with its usual energy. Tourists snapping selfies, red buses humming by, and the occasional street performer drawing crowds in Covent Garden. Among the sea of backpacks and DSLRs stood one man who clearly wanted to be noticed. Chad the Anvil Brody, a mid-tier American pro wrestler known more for his online antics than championship belts. Chad had landed in the UK for what he called his World Domination Tour, mostly a fancy name for a series of vlogs, gym visits, and viral pranks. His followers loved the chaos. Loud, obnoxious, and built like a refrigerator, Chad played the part of the loud-mouthed American tourist to perfection. With a GoPro strapped to his chest and a phone in hand, he strutted down the mall, narrating everything with a smirk. "This right here, my friends," he said to his stream, pointing ahead, "is one of them royal guards. The guys who never blink, mannequins with rifles. Let's see if I can crack a smile out of this one." The chat exploded with, "Do it!" and fire emojis. Egged on, Chad puffed out his chest and approached the guard on duty near a palace gate. Dressed in full ceremonial uniform, the royal guard stood motionless, eyes forward, rifle at his side, the very embodiment of British composure. Chad circled him like a shark, throwing out jokes, bad British accents, and exaggerated salutes. The tourists around started to notice. Phones were out. Smiles turned to giggles. A few awkward glances hinted at discomfort, but no one stopped him. Then he took it up a notch. He leaned in, just inches from the guard's face. "You blinked yet, bro? No? You real? Say something, man." Still nothing. Chad laughed. Okay. Tough guy. And then, without warning, he reached out. Just a light tap on the guard's shoulder. It was quick, almost playful. But it wasn't a joke anymore. The air shifted. What started as entertainment now had weight. Something unspoken passed between the guard's stillness and the crowd's sudden silence. And Chad? He didn't realize it yet. But the line had just been crossed. The moment Chad's hand touched the royal guard's shoulder, a ripple of discomfort spread through the crowd. Some tourists lowered their phones slightly. Others kept filming, sensing that something real, maybe dangerous, was unfolding. Chad didn't notice, or didn't care. He turned back to the camera with a cocky grin. Still no reaction. Man, they really do train you guys to be statues, huh? He flexed his bicep toward the guard's face. I bet you've never even seen the inside of a gym. The guard remained motionless, unflinching. Chad circled behind him again, this time deliberately stepping into the guard's personal space. He mimicked his stiff posture, stood beside him, arms locked at his sides. Then he started narrating in a mock-serious tone, like a nature documentary. Here we see the wild British guard in his natural habitat. Notice how he pretends not to feel emotions, or protein deficiency. The crowd gave half-hearted laughs, unsure if this was still funny. A woman near the front whispered, "He's going too far." A child asked his mom, "Why is he being mean?" But Chad was in performance mode, high on attention, blind to the vibe shift. He reached up again, this time brushing his hand across the guard's bearskin hat. "Nice hat, bro. You borrow this from a marching band?" The silence from the guard was louder than ever. Not a flinch, not a twitch. Chad, mistaking it for weakness, chuckled. "I mean, if you won't do anything, what's the point, right?" Then, with a slight push, he bumped the guard's shoulder. This time, the reaction was different, not from the guard, but the air itself. The crowd went silent, phones raised higher. Tension crackled like static. And then, Chad made his biggest mistake. He stepped in front of the guard's path, blocking him deliberately, and raised his fists with a mocking grin. "What if I did try something, huh? You gonna stop me, tough guy?" The guard shifted his foot. Just a single, clean, precise step forward. It was subtle, mechanical, but it was enough. Chad's grin faltered. Just a flicker, but it was there. The tiniest flicker of doubt. The first crack in the armor of bravado. And in that sliver of a moment, the crowd knew the royal guard wasn't going to ignore him forever. It happened fast. Before Chad could even finish his next sentence, something about teaching this tin soldier a lesson, the royal guard moved. Not a sluggish lunge or clumsy push. It was a blur. One moment he was still, the next his boot sliced through the air with military precision, stepping past Chad's block with fluid authority. Chad flinched instinctively, caught off guard. Whoa, easy there," he started, but it was already too late. The guard's left arm came up in a tight, practiced arc, knocking Chad's raised hand aside with the efficiency of someone who drilled this motion 1,000 times. The wrestler staggered back half a step. Not hurt, but rattled. His ego, not his body, took the first blow. The crowd gasped. Tourists who'd been laughing a moment ago were now silent, phones trembling in their hands. This wasn't a performance anymore. This was something else. Chad's smile twisted into a scowl. "You want to go, soldier boy?" he growled, squaring up and spreading his stance like he was back in the ring. The guard didn't speak. He didn't need to. Chad threw a punch, sloppy, overconfident, meant more to intimidate than connect. The guard intercepted it. With a pivot and a twist, he redirected the strike using Chad's own momentum. The wrestler stumbled forward, off balance, and the guard followed through with a clean sweep of the leg. Chad hit the pavement hard, his back slapping against the ground with a thud that echoed. A loud collective "Ooh!" burst from the crowd. Still holding his rifle steady in one hand, the guard took a step back and returned to a poised stance, his expression unreadable, posture untouched, breathing calm. Chad groaned, rolling onto his side, dazed. He blinked up at the man he thought was just a statue, now standing above him like a figure carved from stone, but sharper, more dangerous. A few in the crowd began to cheer. Some clapped. Others just stared in disbelief. The moment was already going viral. A dozen phones had captured the whole sequence. No one was laughing at Chad anymore. He looked up at the royal guard with wide, confused eyes, and for the first time all day, he said nothing. Because now he understood. This wasn't some silent ornament in a costume. This was a soldier. And Chad had just picked a fight with the wrong one. Chad sat up slowly, his breath ragged, eyes darting between the royal guard's boots and the cameras all around him. The bravado had drained from his face. His followers, thousands watching live, flooded the chat with wide-eyed emojis and, "Bro, you got dropped." But the royal guard? He stood exactly where he had before. No gloating, no words, just control. Absolute, disciplined control. He wasn't showboating. He wasn't angry. He was simply executing training. Centuries of tradition, refined into instinct. This wasn't the first time someone had tested the patience of a guard, but few ever took it this far. Behind the red uniform and polished boots was a soldier trained in close-quarters combat, crowd control, unarmed defense. These weren't ceremonial costumes. They were the final layer over elite readiness. The guard wasn't there to play. He was there to protect. And when the line was crossed, he didn't hesitate. The crowd looked at him differently now. What once seemed like an immovable prop had become something formidable, even majestic. Chad, humbled but still stubborn, got to his feet, wiping dust from his elbow. "You got lucky," he muttered under his breath. The guard didn't move, but two nearby soldiers, posted further down the path, had stepped slightly forward, subtle, barely noticeable. But it was a message. This ends now. Chad saw it. He raised both hands, backing off with a forced chuckle. All right. I'm done. Chill. Just a prank, bro. No response. The Royal Guard returned to his original stance, one step back, rifle at his side, chin lifted toward the horizon. As if nothing had happened. As if the takedown, the threat, the entire humiliation of a grown man twice his size was just routine. Because for him, it was. For Chad, it had been a fight. For the Royal Guard, it was Tuesday. The crowd, once rowdy, now stood in a strange kind of reverence, like they had just witnessed not a scuffle, but a ritual, a lesson, one they wouldn't forget, and neither would Chad. By the time Chad limped off screen and ended his live stream, the clip was already spreading like wildfire. Within an hour, it was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, reactions, edits, slow-motion replays. One account posted it with the caption, "When the statue starts fighting back." Another added dramatic orchestral music and labeled the Guard the final boss of Britain. Commentary channels were on it within the day. Wrestler gets humbled by Royal Guard, hit trending by midnight. Memers had a field day. Even former military professionals weighed in. That takedown was clean. Guard did exactly what he was trained to do. Chad tried to spin it at first. A follow-up post with a forced laugh. "Yo, that guy's got hands. Respect." But the internet wasn't buying it. He wasn't the badass anymore. He was the guy who got folded in front of Buckingham Palace while yelling, "Do something," into a camera. Eventually, he issued a real apology. Something about respect, boundaries, underestimating the discipline behind the uniform. The tone was softer, humbled, wiser. But the Royal Guard? He never said a word. He never posted, never claimed victory, never looked into the camera. The next day, he was right back at his post, still silent, watching. But people looked at him differently now. Tourists passed by with quiet admiration. Kids pointed with awe, not amusement. Even Chad's own fans started calling the Guard the Silent Hammer, or Britain's final line. He had become a symbol, not just of strength, but of something deeper, discipline, honor, and the kind of quiet power that doesn't need to shout to be heard. And somewhere, buried beneath the avalanche of memes, one comment stood out, simple, clear, poetic. He didn't break character, he became the story.